Hey guys, and welcome to my War Room 2 tutorial. My objective in this is to not only show you the basic usages of this app, but some of the hidden features that some people know about but can make your life a whole lot easier, not only searching for various card abilities, but playing a game as well. I will leave some timestamps up here so that you can skip straight ahead to whatever features you want to, or you can sit through the entire thing, see if you learn anything, and hopefully by the end of this you will understand this app a lot better and perhaps learn something new that can help you play your games. Anyways, I will be using the desktop build of War Room. There is a version that is downloadable for Windows and Mac that does offer an opportunity for streaming, but I personally don't like it as it takes up too much of the screen for my liking. I also haven't seen Privateer Press use it, but it does exist. Anyway, outside of that stream feature and one screen where it will pop up, it will function the exact same way as your tablet would. So that will be something to keep in mind, that we will be looking at a tablet view, whereas the phone view more or less cuts the screen in half so that the backside of cards and quick view of cards are not as easily accessible. The other thing to notice is that my menu bar is on the right of my screen over here. I've noticed it's the same way with Kindle tablets, however most other tablets and phones will have the menu on the bottom. So as I describe the icons I'm going for, on your device, just find the ones that match what I'm describing about, and you can tab along, follow along. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we are in the correct mode of War Room. In the top right corner of my screen, you will see a green circle with the War Machine and Horde's face logo in it. That tells you are in the War Machine and Horde's mode of War Room. There is a Company of Iron mode that we can switch to. If we hit the icon directly beneath it, the three horizontal lines, if we switch to Company of Iron, we will see a red circle up there. That I will not be covering at all. I want to stick with War Machine and Hordes and list building in there and card viewing in there, so if you see this, make sure you hit our menu, the three horizontal lines again, switch to War Machine and Hordes, and we see that and we're good. The next thing to make sure of is that we are using the Oblivion theme forces. When War Room first loads up, it does start in pre-Oblivion mode, so the other thing we want to see under this menu is use pre-Oblivion themes. If we see this option, that means we're in the correct mode. If we don't see this option, which I will switch it over right now. If we see right here, use Oblivion themes, we want to make sure we click on that and hit OK. War Room has not removed that option yet as of this recording, however they are supposed to be doing so probably pretty soon, so it's not even worth looking at the old theme forces anymore. The next option we want to go over is viewing the store. Unfortunately, the streaming client doesn't support making purchases, but in there we see each individual faction deck. You can buy all the War Machine decks, you can buy all the Horde decks, or you can buy every card in the game for the existence of Mark III. I highly recommend buying full War Room if you can. For example, I bought full War Room when the app got released, and I have not had to pay anything extra in order to gain access to Crucible Guard, Grimkin, or Infernals, which have all been introduced since Mark III came out. Anyways, moving down the menu line, we have check for updates, which if something doesn't seem right, you might want to do this first. Download data, download portraits. That basically forces the app to re-download every part of it, so it can take a little while. Again, only recommended if you're experiencing problems. Then we have download PDF. This is the rules PDF. Some older devices do have trouble with the rulebook, but most newer devices can do it just fine. The app does not require you to download it right away, so if you do want access to the rulebook for rules references, you will need to go in here and click that. Moving downward, we have view release notes, which can be fun to go back and see when various dynamic updates happened, when pre-releases were out. For example, the Morrowind Battle Priest that happened during WTC this past year, so it can be kind of fun to see when certain things came out. Other than that, not super useful once the updates have actually happened. Then we have the privacy policy, which will take you to the Privateer Press website, and Exit War Room, which does exactly what it says. The next thing down is the question mark here, which is a very, very basic tutorial of War Room. You will see it the first time you open up the app, and pretty much any time you see it after that is when you have accidentally clicked on it. So just to go through it, this is what it says. We will be doing this in much greater detail. After this, I'm going to skip all the way to the bottom of my screen, where we have this little cogwheel in my bottom right corner. And these are basic settings for the app. We have text size, so for giant tablet, normal people, and old person font. I will stick with normal person. Below that, we have the various button sizes. The larger they are, the easier they are to tap, the harder they are to fat finger, so this is very useful for smaller devices. Some devices you can lock it in portrait mode or tablet mode. Tablet is what we will be looking at. Portrait is basically phone mode. You only see one side of the card at the time, you can't see both. For example, if you have a smaller tablet like a Kindle, you might want to put in portrait mode if tablet mode is a little bit too hard to read for you. The last thing on this part of the menu that we want to look at is our frame rate. There is absolutely no reason to have anything higher than 15 frames per second. There are barely any transitions in this app. There is no reason to have it at 30. It will just drain your battery. Drop it down to 15. Your battery life will thank you. The last thing we can do with our settings is change our background. So far I have had a plain black background, but now I'm going to change it to something I find aesthetically pleasing, something I like. All we have to do is click on the picture and it automatically fills it in the background. There are some really cool ones in here. The one I've been wanting to use lately is Vengeance 2. So I'm going to click that, hit accept, and now I have a fancy customized war room. And with that done, we are now going to take a look at our center icons here, and I'm going to work my way from the bottom up. So the very bottom one in the center that looks like a book, that is our rulebook PDF. We click that, we get a list of various things that should, in theory, take us to the correct spot of the rulebook. However, whenever we click on something, we will see the search is not the best. The best way to use this is actually for the binoculars, and in here we can type in what we want. So say arc node. Ooh. Let's shrink that down a little bit. 13 results. All right. And now it'll highlight what we want. Now we can actually see what they are. We have warjack damage keys. And if we keep moving up, we will eventually come to the icon in the rulebook. Now, to zoom, it's pinch. However, I'm just going to hit buttons because that's easier in stream mode. And then we can scroll up and down and flip through the rulebook. That is about the best we can do with that. And now we have our button in the very center, a card with a plus and minus. This is our collection editor. And in here we can tell the app what we own, what we have painted. Hey, I own Agathon now. And when it comes to list building, we can tell it to limit to what we owned or limit to what we have painted and give us a view that way, kind of give us an idea of what we need to do for various events. Since I am primarily a circle player, what I'm going to do is hit this downward arrow with the 3 lines on it, and I'm going to select Circle or Boros. If you want, you can check this Valid Mercenary Minions cards. It will, underneath all the faction models, show all the minion models that can work for that faction. Down here we have the various leagues. They are rarely ever used, largely ignored. But this is how you select what faction you're going into. The other important thing up here is this icon where we can sort items by name, by points high to low, or points low to high. So, of course, by name, everything's alphabetical. For a lot of stuff can be nice and organized, especially when you're hunting for certain characters. However, for me in list building, the way my brain works, I like sorting points low to high, so that when I look at something, the cheapest model is up top, the most expensive model is on the bottom. When you're getting close to finishing list building and you've got certain small amount of points to fill up, I have found looking at models this way is a whole lot easier to figure out what I do want to put in, what I can't put in, or what I might need to adjust. Anyways, with the collection editing, you can either start with what you owned or what you have painted. Enter your painted models first because that will automatically increase your owned count. So you can do this with all of your war beasts. No, Getrix is painted. Who am I kidding? Solos, battle engines. Hello, Wells. I lovers you. And one of the interesting things with this is when we come to units, it's not asking you how many units you own. It's asking you how many models in the unit you own. For example, saying I have 3 painted shifting stones does not mean I own 3 units of painted shifting stones. It means I own 3 painted shifting stone models. In reality, I have 9. The reason it does this is for units like, say, the Wolves of Ouroboros. If I tell the application I have 20 Wolves of Ouroboros models, if I go into list building and limit it to what I own, it will count the number of models I use whether I select minimum unit or maximum unit. For example, 2 max units will use up all 20 models, however 3 minimum units will only use up 18 of those. That's a little counterintuitive, but that is how units work, and it works for all units that way. Anyways, now on to the fun part, the regular card viewer. So just like collection editing, we can go into here and we can select whatever faction we want to. I'm going to go ahead and stick with Circle Ouroboros for now. And up at the top, we can select whether we want to view only the models that we own, the models that we don't own, the models that we have painted, or every model in the line that we don't have painted, whether we own them or not. Going to stick with all and hit apply. Now, again, I have it sorted low to high, so it might look a little different from most people's. But from here, let's select, let's say Chromac the Ravenous. And click on it, we can view the card front and back, scroll, and we can see the spell card. But if you know Chromac, you'll notice while I'm scrolling, I'm only seeing Tharn form. If a model has multiple forms like Chromac, or if it has a companion like, say, Wormwood, who is right here, and again, we're only seeing Wormwood here, even Kaya with Laris. What we now have to look for is on the right hand side of my screen, underneath this T, there's 2 people looking thing. We click that, and now we can see the models that come with the Warcaster. So now I can look at Laris. If I go to Wormwood, now I can look at Cassius. If I go to Chromac, now I can look at Beast Form Chromac. The other icon worth noting is the paperclip. This will show you every model that can attach to the card you originally opened, whether it be a Jack Marshall, a Lesser Warlock, or even a unit with various attachments. For example, we have, not that way, this way, Shifting Stones, who can only have 1 model attached to it, so when we hit the paperclip, it's just going to bring that up. If we have a unit that can have multiple attachments on it, so for that example, let's go over to Retribution and pick a unit, doesn't really matter too much. Let's say Houseguard Rifleman. We hit the paperclip, we can see that we can attach either Solus Escorts or Houseguard Rifleman Officer in Standard. We can click those and it'll do the same thing. All you have to do is hit the back arrow to back out, and world is nice and happy. One other interesting thing of note for Warlocks is, let's start with Kruger. There's a button with a T on here. This will show you what themes that particular Warcaster or Warlock can go into. So for example, with Kruger, we have Devourer's Host, we have the Bones of Ouroboros, the Wild Hunt, and Secret Masters. So one thing we'll know with Secret Masters is it only allows Circle Blackclad Warlocks. So if I back out of Kruger and go into Chromac, and I'll look at the theme forces he's allowed in, we will see Devourer's Host, Bones of Ouroboros, Wild Hunt, and that's it. He is not a Blackclad, he is not allowed in Secret Masters, therefore it does not show up. Now I will grant this method is not perfect. For example, for Mercenaries, Flames in the Darkness shows up on every caster, but this works for the most part. So when you're looking at a Warcaster or a Warlock, if you tap on the themes, it gives you a much better idea of what themes you can actually use with that, or if there are themes that can't be used with that particular Warcaster. So there's your basic Warlock viewing. War Beast, it's the same thing. Click on it, view the card, and Battle Engines, Solos, Units, all of that works pretty much the same. Skinwalkers hit the paperclip and now we see their attachment. Another thing of note is to keep in mind what is an attachment. Even if it's a solo that attaches to a Warcaster, for example the Druid Wilder or the Tharn Blood Shaman, despite saying Circle Solo in the second tagline, you will find it under attachments because it does attach to a particular Warlock. This works for all caster attachments. So if you're trying to find a solo, can't find it in the regular solo slot, scroll down to attachments, see if you find it in there. Now, if you're just having a hard time finding a particular model in general, say I wanted to find the Wilder, I didn't want to figure out what section she was in, I can go up here to enter search terms, enter Wilder, and boom, attachments, it'll bring her up. So with no keywords, it will only search this top line. However, it will search for all of it. So for example, we search Chromac, we've got 2 Chromacs in there. Now, say we go to Protectorate of Manoth, we're going to clear the search and search for Severius. It'll bring up Sevi 1, 2, and 0. Now, the search function actually has a lot going on with it, and that's what I'm going to get into now. Now, for a lot of basic searches, if you're just curious about what models have stealth or need certain tech, so for Protectorate's sake, we'll stay in here. Now, remember how boring this question mark was on the right hand side? Well, there's another question mark right next to our search terms that is absurdly useful. So what we can do is we can click that, and here it brings up a bunch of keywords that we can use, also all the various properties in the game. So say we wanted to know every Protectorate model that has stealth. We just scroll down here, we find stealth, click on it, we'll notice the keyword there, and just like that, we are now looking at every Protectorate model along with the mercenary and minions that will work for them that has stealth innately. Now we can expand this to go to the entire game if we do collection all, factions all, and hit apply. Now we're looking at every Warcaster, Warlock, every model in the game that has stealth innate. Now that is something to keep in mind, that is what has stealth innate. There are certain models that can gain stealth via other means. So, for example, something we want to search for in that regard is for features, which is abbreviated FTR. So for the stealth one, we're going to search for feature Prowl. And now we can look at every model in the game that has Prowl. Now, in our regular card viewer, this can be very useful. Say you're using a Fog of Warcaster or you're up against your opponent. Again, we can just specify it straight down to whatever particular faction we want to look at and just narrow it down to there. Another thing that we can search for is, I just want to double check the keyword here, and looks like we're going to want to use the regular feature. And here we go. Now we can look at all the various occultation casters in the game. Apply. So, really, Fiona has occultation. Huh. I forgot about that. That's pretty awesome. Anyways, there's all the various occultation casters in the game. The only downside of this is you do need to know what you're looking for when you search. Between every search, you will more than likely want to hit this little red X. Otherwise, it will just keep narrowing your search down further and further and further, and you may not get the actual results you want. So, another example is, say we're looking for all the models that have tough. We can come over here, find the tough icon, click it, and boom. Casters that show up twice is because one of them's in one faction, one of them is in another. So in here we have Mercenary Rahera, and then we have Crixian Rahera. However, just like that, we now see everyone who has tough. Of course, there's more in Hordes than there is in War Machine. Trolls are a faction. Now, say you want to deal with tough or deal with anti-healing, what we can do is search for feature and try to find all the grievous wounds that exist. So now we have Warcasters, Warlocks. Here's our Warjacks with grievous wounds. Now, it searches the entire card. It doesn't tell you if it's critical or not, so you do have to click on the card to figure that out. But there are all our grievous wounds models. Another good ability to get around tough is Sniper, so we can clear that off. Search for feature, Sniper, and boom. There we go. And just for the lulz, I wanted to search for Deadly Shot, but what does she have that's deadly? Deadly Storm. Okay. So again, sometimes you might hit something that you don't necessarily expect, but what I was looking for in particular is this Deadly Shot, which, again, can help with various things. If you know what you're looking for, you can find it. Looking at one, this made me think of, you know what, let's find all the various things that have leadership. So these are all models that will affect something else in some way. So learning to search via terms is extremely useful. Another thing, especially with the multi-faction themes that are coming across, we will want to search for keywords. So searching for a keyword will only look at the second line of text on the card. For example, if I search for Thammarite, I'll search for keyword, let's spell this properly, Thammarite, and it will bring up my Warcasters, Solos, and units. You'll notice the Thammarite Archon is not in there. It's because it's part of its name. It's not technically a keyword as War Room views it. So if I clear that, search Thammarite, now we'll bring that. As another mercenary example, something you will want to keep in mind is we have the keyword Steelhead for those guys. However, everybody knows that is nowhere even close to all the Steelhead models in the game. So if we search for the name Steelhead, alright, there's everyone else. Another thing we can look for are all the Morrowind models. Again, with constants, it's just because one is Merc, one is Signar. And so here, without going into the theme forces or just out of mere curiosity, you can kind of go through and see what exists out there. Another fun thing to search for to satisfy your curiosity is you can search for specific stats. So if you enter just the number, it will search for that number or higher. For example, say I want to know what has defense 15 or greater. So I search for defense 15, and this will show me every card that has a defense value of 15 or higher. Sup, Orion. Now, that's a lot of models. We can either narrow it down to only the models that have defense 15. So nobody in here will have a defense lower or higher, just exactly 15. We can search for, need to clear it, because again, if we don't clear it, it just keeps narrowing down our search. Now, something I just figured out, despite the menu here saying use number minus for equal to or less than the value, it's actually the other way around. So let's change the value a bit. Let's go for each model that has a defense of 10 or lower. Now, we can see all the super easy to hit things. Your Guardian, Blightbringer, Wormwood. Hooray, Wormwood. So that's just defense. You can do this with... Did not expect that, sorry. You can do this with any stat, whether it be armor, speed, anything like that. So, for example, let's do speed 7 or greater. Here's our fast boys. You can search in a range, so here's our various speed 5 to 6 things, which is still going to be a lot. One of the interesting things I heard on a podcast once is defense 17. That's it. There are all your defense 17 or greater models. Only warcasters. No solos, no units. Not even a warlock. Just warcasters get to hit that magical number. So by all means, spend some time in here. Explore around with it. This is an extremely useful tool when it comes to viewing cards. And if you're ever curious, you can hit this menu. It just brings up your recent searches. So that is card viewing in a nutshell. That's card searching in a nutshell. Again, extremely useful. And now, armed with the knowledge of how to search through models, let's go ahead and build an army. So we're going to start over here with the Build an Army tab. And we will see this currently disorganized mess of a screen I've got. There are a couple ways to organize this. I'm going to start by the order by options, high to low. Well, everything's 75 points, so that doesn't do anything. Low to high. Well, that still doesn't do anything. Army name? Well, I put it alphabetical. That's still not too useful. Most recent. It's better, but not great yet. The most used sorting options are over here on the left, where we have by caster, where if you happen to have multiple lists for one caster, like I normally would for Morvana 1, they would all show down there. We can sort by faction, so stick with our mercenaries, our infernals, or our circle lists. I'm going to collapse all those. Or my favorite way, and probably the most useful, by tag. Now these don't have a tag yet. They're kind of fun, don't have too much of a spot. These are waiting on models to be either released or arrive on my door. And this is the current start of a list pair I've got to bring with me to game days. Let's go ahead and create a list to go along with that guy. So we are going to select Create New Army. We're going to do Mercenaries. We are going to give it a name. Give you a clue into what I'm doing. Now, point level, you can hit the plus and minus to adjust as you need. You can even hit custom amounts should you desire to. Anybody who played a lot in Mark II might know that 42 number from the Germans. Down here we have further options, limit to owned. Nah, not going to select that one for now. Limit to painted. I do not have near enough mercs painted to do that. Use steamroller rules. That will show the objectives during your list building, but considering you decide your objectives at the table, it's not that useful of a tool anymore. Specialists, they aren't used anymore. You can either leave all of them blank or go ahead and click Specialist None. Next, we can add tags to the list. So we already know this is going to be part of my list pair. However, there are some models not released yet that I may want to use. So I'm also going to put the soon tag in there. Now you can create however many custom tags you want. You can put as many tags as you want on a certain list and it will show up under those, and we will take a look at that after we're done list building. So let's go ahead and create. Now from here there are a couple different directions we can go. First, we can either click here, browse our Warcasters, select our Warcaster and then our theme, or since Mercenaries has so many exclusive themes, I find it easier to start with our theme forces, which is this little T up at the top where we previously said no theme selected. First theme we have is Operating Theater. Well, they're not very Morrowind, are they? Kingmakers, pass. Hammerstrike, pass. Lealese, might be able to do something fun in there, but I'm not going to right now. Irregulars, nah. Italian Charter, not at the moment. Soldier's Fortune, no. Flame in the Darkness, here we go. Now, one of the reasons I'm picking this particular theme force is it's unique in Mercs in that it has this line up to 2 non-character Signar or Khador Warjacks. So we are going to select this. After you select your theme, on the left over here, it will automatically cut down on the models that you can actually bring in on your theme force. Something sort of note over here, if you drop down Warjacks or attachments, nothing shows up. I will go over why they don't show up there and how to view those models. So collapse all, and first thing I'm going to do is start with Ashlyn. So remember before we said we could take Signarn or Khador Warjacks? Well, over here we have blank on Warjacks. That's because we want to go to the paperclip on Ashlyn, and this will bring up all the models we can attach to her. However, there still aren't any Signarn or Khador Warjacks. So any theme like this one, or most theme forces, I think every theme force for the non-mercenary minions pairs can bring in outside faction models, mercenary minions, whatever. To bring those in, we have to go over to here where it says select friendly cards, and then it brings up a list of the various models we can bring in. So in Flames of the Darkness, it starts off with here's our non-character Khador Warjacks, then down at the bottom, non-character Signar Warjacks. Now, seeing as Ashlyn has Distraction, which seems really good with the Narc node, I'm going to stick with Signarin Jacks, and I'm going to select these two for the time being and hit Done. Now, as we go into list building, we can hit this paperclip over here, and there's our Lancer, there's our Hurricane. Let's go ahead and start with a Hurricane. Now, something else interesting and good to know with searching is with Ashlyn in particular, anybody who knows her feat, you gain 2 additional dice on your attack rolls, and you get to choose which dice disappear, which means it's actually really good for getting criticals. So let's start with Ashlyn's battle group, and hey, we recognize the search bar at the top, and I think we remember how to search, so let's search for feature, critical. Okay, only the Mule. What does the Mule got? Mule has critical devastation on its gun. That seems pretty cool. However, I just put in a Hurricane. I'm a little leery on what I want to spend on battle group right now, so I'll hold off on that. Going to clear that search. So you know what? Let's search over on the other side. Above where our Warcasters are over here, we have enter search terms. So let's do this over here. Feature critical. Alright, we already know there's nothing in Warjack. Solos. Morrowind Archon. Morrowind Archon has critical blind. Well, that seems like a really powerful ability to have, so you know what? Let's toss 2 of them in there. Alright, we're going to clear our search. Now we've kind of got feet more or less set out. I like to start list building without my requisition options first, just kind of toss everything in there. So let's double check what they are. Requisition options, a command attachment, 3 Battle Priest weapon attachments, 2 Thamorite Advocate solos, which aren't out yet, 1 small or medium base solos. So let's try to avoid these for the time being. So solos, well, Throne can't be brought in that way. And I've got 2 Morwinds. Thamorite looks like fun. Let's go ahead and add him. And for units, let's bring on some firepower with the Vigilance. And let's put in some Precursor Knights. Okay, there's a lot of red, so that means I'm low on points. I've got 71 out of 75, 4 points left. Alright, so just like Warjacks don't show up under here, attachments don't there, because they belong to the paperclip on the unit themselves. So we hit the paperclip, and now we can attach the officer in standard. Okay, now we're at 75 out of 75. You can adjust unit size on the fly in War Room. So with each of these units, they have a little cogwheel over here. And when you select that, you can bounce in between. Here, I'll pop that up so you can see the points show up. You can hop between minimum or maximum unit sizes, and it'll adjust points accordingly instead of having to delete the unit and then re-add it. Well, now we're at 75 out of 75, however, we have yet to use any requisition options. So let's go up here to select requisition cards. When you're list building, if you see select free cards up here instead, back out all the way to the home screen, make sure you're using Oblivion themes, and then come back in. Oblivion themes say requisition, old themes say free, so something to keep in mind. Anyways, we go to requisition cards. Now we have Glyn Cormier, who has Leadership Order of Illumination Vigilance. Well, we've got 2 units of those, so we definitely want her. We're going to toss in the Hermit for the lulls, and Morwen Battle Priests. Now they are a weapon attachment that can go on either of those units. So when you select a requisition point like that, it will bring up all available options. It is up to you to put them exactly where you want them. I'm going to slap all 3 on the Precursor Knights. Hit done, and now we have our full 75 point list. Now for some reason the Precursor Knights offend me. I like seeing my officer and standards, my command attachments underneath the weapon attachments. I don't know if it's like that for anybody else. The way War Room organizes your armies is the order you put models in. So to fix this for myself, what I typically do is I will delete the Precursor Knight officer in standard and then immediately reattach him, and this makes my brain much more happy. So let's double check our list, make sure we're okay with everything. We're going to hit back. Do we want to save? Yes. And now we will see we have the pair tag where we have Moro lives, and then we have the soon tag, which also shows Moro lives. Now, in order to solidify what we've already learned, let's create another list really quick. So we're going to create a new army. Let's show you how a regular one works. Let's do a circle one. 75 points is great. Tags. I'm going to create a new tag for the walkthrough. Let's create the tag. There it is. And create. Alright, now my list name is Tharns. So let's make it a Tharn list. I'm going to start right off the bat with select friendly cards. And we have our minion units. Crockpot is always a good one to bring with Tharn. And the list builds that I had in mind, I had 1 spare point, so I'm going to scroll down to solos and select Swamp Gobber River Raiders. The way War Room sorts these cards is it will do all the mercenary cards in alphabetical order. It's easier to see on the solo side. And then once it's done the mercenaries, it will then go through the minions cards, also in alphabetical order. All right, we've got our 1 solo, we've got our 1 unit selected. We hit done. And warlocks. Scroll down to Baldur 1. Where are you? There you are. We hit his paperclip and we see the Shaman Caster attachment. I want to fill his battle group points exactly, but not exceed it, so a Shadowhorn Satyr and Getrix do that quite well. Now that we are done with that, go to Battle Engines and Structures. Well of Ouroboros, real good with him. Solos, Swamp Gobber River Raider. I'm going to hold off on the other souls for now. I'm not using a Primal Archon. Units. We will start with the Crockpot, Breen Call, and Death Wolves. Those are all fantastic units to have on your side. Blood Trackers take Stone Skin really well. Ravagers are just a solid unit to have all the way around. Alright, we're starting to get a little low on points. Let's scroll to the bottom. Let's attach the command attachment, see how that looks. And there we go, we are back to 75 out of 75 without any requisition points used yet. Let's collapse all those and select our requisition cards. First thing we have, 3 Gallows Groves. Always useful, easy sack targets for the Shaman. And it never hurts to have extra arc nodes on the table. Wolf Rider Champion also takes Stone Skin really well, and what would a Tharn list be without the Lord of the Feast? Now that we have all our requisition points spoken for, done, scroll through, there it is. There is our Tharn list. Going to back out and save. And there's list building in a nutshell. So you can see walkthrough, we only have that. Pair, we only have that. Now that we've created a couple lists, the all-important part, we are going to go to war. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with an online match just to kind of get the basics out of the way. Either way, when we want to actually use War Room as a damage tracker, we select Go to War and we have 3 options: a local match, create online match, or join online match. Now when you create an online match, what the game will do is make a lobby with the first 3 letters of your username followed by 3 random digits. My username is Canadianized, so any match I create will start with CAN and then 3 random digits. Just to show you what's going on, I've got a tablet with War Room running that I have started a match with, and as a result I'm going to go to online match. You will not see this screen unless you're using desktop version, so we can ignore it. I'm going to hit normal, and the match name I'm going to use is CAN992. Boom. Joining lobby, and joining online match. And here we are. We are in a lobby. You will see this is blank. That is because neither my opponent nor I have selected a list yet. When doing an online match, this is the best way I have found to do a proper blind list selection is wait until your opponent's in, show each other that you are both in add an army mode, and then go ahead and select your lists from there. So my opponent, quote unquote, is going to select their list. I'm going to select mine. For demo purposes, I am going to take my Tharn list as an option. Once you are happy with your list, hit the green check mark, and once both parties have done so, you will see that add an army disappear, and this means we are in fight mode. We can actually do damage tracking. I can view all his stuff, he can view all mine. And if I tap this arrow to shrink my list, I can see what they're bringing. Now, card viewing in this mode is a little bit different. To start off with, we can tap this top banner, and we can see what the theme force allows. And it will be only the current theme force in use. And then there are quick view options on the cards, where if you tap more or less the main bar of the model over on the right hand side, we will get a quick view of everything, all the rules, spells, basic abilities, icons, pretty much everything you need to know about the model. We can also see that with the Blood Shaman, Getorix, Gallows Grove, Lord of the Feast. Now this also works with your opponent. We can take a quick browse over everything they've got. On a phone, you have to select that spot and swipe over to see this. On a tablet, it just automatically shows. The other option to view cards is to click on the picture, and it brings up the card proper. Very, very rarely will there be information on the card that you cannot see in the quick view. Either way, that is how you view cards. Now, something to keep in mind is this is a steamroller session that has been for a couple years, where you pick objectives at the start of the game after list selection. There is a way to do that in War Room. Now when we look over to my right towards the center, well, the entire right bar, we see very, very familiar symbols over here. So what we want to do is go into our card viewer, and we want to make sure in our selection area here with the 3 bars, we want to include steamroller objectives. What that does is at the bottom here, we can select our objectives, we can view them, and then once we have decided on which one we want to use, we hit this plus sign, and boom, there it is. That is how you add models to your list. Now, this being a circle list, I have a Well of Ouroboros with the Opening the Gate ability that can bring a solo with a point cost of 5 or less into play, a non-character faction solo. We do this the same method we added the objective. We go into our card viewer, we make sure we have circle, let's take out the minions for now, and we go to solos, and we select the one we want. Half the time I take the Black-clad Wayfarer, so I hit the plus sign on the Wayfarer, back out, scroll down, and there he is. Added to my list, all nice and happy. Now, when you add a model to your list in that fashion, your opponent can actually view it as well. Just to show you how that works, I'm going to scroll down to the Zadaroth list, and over on my other tablet, I am going to pretend that Zadaroth is going to sacrifice a wretch, which you will promptly see die, and they will add a Desolator to their battle group. So as I add a Desolator, you can see it shows up on my screen as well. Same thing with Gravnoy. She doesn't have to sacrifice anybody to do it, but should I add a Shrieker onto her, we can immediately see it show up. This is a glitch down here. War Room does this. We can ignore it. It's not real. Anyways, this quick add card option exists for Infernals, and I think there might be a couple others where they add models so frequently. I think the Spawning Vessel might. But instead of going over to the regular card viewer, you can hit the plus sign and it makes it a little bit easier. Something we may have noticed is this wretch is dead. Damage tracking is something very useful to know how to do as well. As your opponent's models get damaged, you can view them and see how their damage tracks are. However, you are not allowed to mess with your opponent's models in that regard. To track damage on your own models, what you want to do is hit the little heart symbol, and there are a couple different ways to do it. You can either click on the plus and minus, or there's a scroll bar that you can slide back and forth to select. Once you have the damage applied, you can either hit commit or accept. Commit will save the damage but keep you in this screen. Accept will save the damage and back you out. Should you have the opportunity to heal, such as from the stockpile objective, you just click on how much you want to heal, hit either commit or accept, and there you go. Damage is saved. For a War Beast or Warjack, since they have systems, there are a couple different ways you can go through this. However, it functionally ends up the same way. I'm going to do it in the way the damage rolls are technically supposed to go according to the appendix. So we have the damage that gets applied. Say somebody does 15 points of damage to the Shadowhorn, and they roll a column. Column is 3, so first thing I do, put up 15, tap the column it goes to, damage automatically shifts for it, and I'm going to commit, assuming that more attacks are going to come in. Sure enough, they do. 3 damage to 2, commit, 2 damage to 1. That's their last attack, so I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. And there we go. You can see the body has all its damage boxes filled, so War Room conveniently crosses that out for you as a helpful reminder of that system is out. Again, with healing, we tap this heart icon and we select which areas we want to heal, hit commit. We can take a look at it if we want, or we can also hit accept, and all is good to go. Well, War Room isn't perfect in that it doesn't always sync the matches to your opponent's damage grids. As I've tried, we can't see it on here, but I have marked damage on my other tablet. You will still need to ask your opponent to see their cards on occasion if you want to just verify how much damage something is taken, if any systems are out, or anything of that nature. Now, when we come to other units, we have things like multi-wound units, like our Ravagers, which, let's go ahead and ding these guys up a little bit as I click furiously through various things. We are going to hit commit. When a unit is banged up like this, if a leader model dies, so you're going to hit commit, you are required in the game to field promote a model. The way this works is picking the model that we want to promote. Say, for example, Model C is in the best position to keep everybody else in formation. What we would do is hit these triple chevrons, and it'll immediately switch damage grids with the leader model. So now C is the one removed off the table. A has 2 damage boxes left on it. It is now the new unit leader. We can hit accept. Interestingly enough, with single wound models, you can actually keep track of how many models get killed. If you have an ability like Morvana 1's Restoration, you can bring models back. It works the same way as healing and removing damage. So we have this many models dead. We go ahead and return those models. We can go back and forth like that. Now there are also some abilities on units like Press Gangers or Mindslaver and Drudges, potentially a few more, where they can actually go over their maximum unit count. So just to show you what it looks like, I'm going to kill 6 blood trackers. We can see there are 4 left. We are going to bring all 6 of them back. We can see 10. If you go over your maximum amount, what you actually want to do here is add model. And we can keep adding as many models as we take over. Hit accept. Now that is an absolutely ridiculous unit, and thankfully that doesn't exist in this game. If we have something like Morvana 2's feat, the only way to bring back select models at full health is to manually sit here and heal back all the boxes. And we can hit accept, and everything's good there. However, on Warbeasts or Warjacks, under feats like Absalonia 1, Darius, where you heal a Warbeast to full, the Sacrifice Arcana also comes to mind. What we can do instead of manually clicking or trying to use a scroll bar to do it, we can go to the top right here, hit reset to base. Do we want to reset all damage? Yes. Boom. Full health. Now say we're playing Thagrosh 1 and he can bring a War Beast back to life, we can do it via the same way. We can hit this little heart symbol, reset to base, yes, boom, full health. There you go. That is online matches. That's your basic card viewing. Again, click the card, we can see the side. Click the model icon, we can see the full card. Click the heart, we can see the damage tracking. One last thing I want to show you with online matches is how to use the chess clock or time clock built into War Room. To access it, where you need to go is the menu icon underneath the War Machine Hordes logo. On my screen it's on the far right near the top. And what we will do is select Use Timer. Select the appropriate time, whether you're using time turns, whether you're using regular time, accelerated time, hardcore for example, and hit accept. And this will show up on both yours and your opponent's device. Once you have figured out who is going to be the player for turn 1, you hit the button with the 2 arrows and the dash in the middle. And as soon as deployment starts, hit play. And it will automatically count down the timer. Now, either of you can pause the timer at any time, can restart the timer even if your opponent paused it, so keep that in mind, please don't be a douche about it. And either of you can swap the clock back and forth from yourself to the other player, from the other player to yourself, as needed. So say you have an interaction on your opponent's turn that you want to make sure you do properly, like countercharge, tough, something in that regard, you can bring the clock over to yourself, make your decision. Once you're done, flip it back over to them. Now, I have absolutely no idea what this will do to your battery life, so use with caution. So with online matches out of the way, say you aren't in a spot that has decent Wi-Fi, you're a little worried about battery life, or some other situation where you don't want to use an online match. I'm going to go ahead and delete this match in progress. You can always create an offline match via local. It is done very similarly, where we can add our army. This time I'm actually going to go ahead and use the Morrowind one we created earlier. And once you're done, you hit this green play button, and then it functions exactly the same as the online match in that you select this, you apply damage as needed, remove damage as needed, and we can go back and forth with the scrolling and the healing and all of that good stuff. However, viewing your opponent's list is obviously going to be a little more difficult. Whereas we already know how to add an objective to our list. Say we're playing against Lucas in Infernals. I know I'm using Infernals a lot, it's because they're a little bit weird, and there's another specific reason I actually want to do it this way. So we want to take a look at Lucas. We can go over here to our card viewer, go to Crucible Guard, apply, forecasters. We've got Lucas right here. Try to add him, and it tries to add him into our list. Now, of course, he is not a mercenary. He is not legal for our faction. And this causes a problem when, say, we also want to make sure we can look at whatever warjacks you've brought, like the Liberator. Well, seeing as Lucas is invalid for our list, War Room is not going to find a proper spot for the Liberator. Now, say you re-rack, you want to do something differently. Once you're in this spot, what you can do is go to the menu by your Warcaster icon, hit Reset Army, Reset to Base, and we are back at the beginning. All cards that have been added have gone away, and we can go back to playing. So we're going to do that. We're going to go straight back into objectives, go ahead and re-add our treasure chest. Now, if you want to build your opponent's list on the fly and be able to reference specific things properly, the way you want to do it is Under our War Machine Hordes icon, this little green symbol in the top right corner, we have a menu. Over here, what we do is add a reference army. What this will do is, underneath your army, input a blank 35-point no theme list. Down here, you can put whatever you want. So now we can go back to our card viewer. We're already in Crucible Guard, and we can toss in Lucas de More, and now we can put him in our reference army. Scroll down, we can see he's there, and he's finally not illegal. This also means we can go into our Warjacks, Liberator, and we can attach it properly. Now the reason I did Lucas doing quote-unquote infernals is you cannot select a theme force for your reference army. However, you most certainly can go into another faction, add one of their solos, toss it in the reference army, and it will still allow you to attach those warjacks or beasts or whatever necessary onto those models. Now you can add any cards down here. Because it's an offline match, you can do your own damage tracking if you want to, but you can now view every card you need to in offline mode down here at the bottom without having to mess with your list up here at the top. The clock still exists. However, seeing as you are not online, you have to use your device to tap the clock back and forth. Your opponent cannot do it for you, so either you're handing your device back and forth to them to keep the clock going, or you have to do everything manually. They have to trust you to tap it. It's really not that recommended for an offline match. However, in a last resort, can definitely be used. And with that, that will conclude all the tips and tricks and war room tutorials that I can think of. Hopefully you have learned something. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, have fun and happy wargaming.